It's 4:20 somewhere, and right now that somewhere is right here. So hello and welcome to the Cannabis Show. My name's producer Vince, and here's your host, Ricardo Baca.
Vince. Hey Vince, one more time. What time is it?
It's 4:20 somewhere.
It is 4:20 right here. To everybody joining us today, welcome to the Cannabist Show, where we talk about all things weed.
That's all things.
And that is the serious marijuana news, and the not always serious stories as well. In fact, if you pop onto our site right now, that is thecannabist.co. You can read stories about the University of Michigan's giant hash bash.
Big Ten proud.
About 3 more recalls of marijuana in Colorado.
Just in Colorado.
And about legalization news in California, Rhode Island, Illinois, Alaska, Connecticut, and a lot more.
Ricardo, you should just say the U.S., dude.
We are passionate about covering cannabis throughout the U.S. Producer Vince is here with me today. Dude, how is it going?
It is going great, brother. With you biting my style with the glasses look this week, but I'll let it go because I'm so excited for this show this week and the week we have next week. We're getting ready for our first ever big 420 party. It's the 420 kickoff party next Friday, April 15th, around 3 o'clock right here at the Denver Post. There's going to be some awesome libations, good times, and of course, you're going to be there, Ricardo.
I'm going to be there, Vince, the whole crew. In fact, anybody who wants to come can. Tickets are on sale right now at thecannabist.co/events. It includes meet and greet, open bar, a screening of the documentary film, rolling papers. We've talked about that. And one thing I'm most looking forward to is giving people tours of the Cannabist Show set and also the Denver Post newsroom. And some Cannabist staffers are going to be stepping up and doing a couple Ignite talks to get us started. If you know anything about Ignite talks, quick 5-minute hits, lots of fun. Very excited. So again, that's thecannabist.co/events to buy tickets to our annual 420 bash. First of its kind.
Yeah,
so,
man.
Vince, it's time to move on. I need some weekend weed in my life. Are you ready for this?
I'm absolutely ready for the weekend weed. 5 minutes or less, like one of those Ignite talks, dude.
All right, let's get started because we have a lot to cover. We're starting this weekend weed in Washington, D.C., where more than 100 protesters gathered at the White House over the weekend to fight the federal laws that prohibit marijuana's consumption.
Okay. First, my favorite part of this story, the protesters obviously borrowed one of those 51-foot-long balloon-shaped like joints from the 420 rally across the street from the Denver Post. And my second favorite part of this was the protesters were wicked careful about where they toked up at 420.
You know, they had to be, and it was very clever, smart, very, very smart. The protesters were surrounded by officers from the U.S. Park Police, the Metropolitan Police, and the Secret Service. I mean, they're right out front the White House, so they lit their bowls and joints while on the street, which is owned by the district, and not the sidewalk, which is owned by the federal government.
And of course, recreational cannabis is legal in the district, or the district's streets, even if public consumption isn't.
Exactly. And, you know, no one was arrested. 2 people were given citations and $25 fines for that public consumption we were just talking about. It was a peaceful protest, according to reports. And the event's organizers said that President Barack Obama must work harder to remove marijuana from the list of Schedule I controlled substances.
You know, that's really starting to sound like a familiar refrain, but as we've reported before, it's really not likely that Obama will act on this before he leaves office.
That's what he's saying, Vince. That's what he's saying. Elsewhere in the weekend weed, more and more Denver cannabis shops are located closer to schools than they technically should be. A Denver Post analysis of city data showed that there are 25 Denver pot shops closer than 1,000 feet to nearby schools. And it's not supposed to be that way.
But it is that way, and it's tricky, because in most of those cases, the shops were there first, and the schools opened nearby after the fact.
Exactly, and when a new or relocated school opens up near an existing marijuana shop, is anyone at fault? The city of Denver says No.
Nope.
That these shops are effectively grandfathered in, and that's the same policy used by the city when new or relocated schools open up within 500 feet of a liquor store.
Okay. Some critics of legalization are still concerned about the proximity, saying, quote, "We are making this attractive to kids and young people."
You know, moving on in the weekend weed events, we have a lot to cover. So let's pay a visit to Jimmy Kimmel's late night show, where he is introducing us to
Mom weed, for moms who toke up on the go. Because let's face it, taking a fat rip off some dank-ass ganj makes doing laundry, changing diapers, cooking, doing more laundry, changing more diapers, cooking again, almost bearable.
All right, Mom Weed. Pretty funny, and you can watch that entire clip at thecannabist.co. Lastly, in the Weekend Weed, we have some good news for fans of pot brownies, and that includes me.
And me, and our friends at Leafly, who put together a Final Four styled brackets of 8 top weed brownie recipes. They paired the brownies off. Our pot brownies went head to head with High Times' pot brownies in the very first round, and won. And then on Monday, they declared the pot brownie champion of the world.
You know, the final matchup was our pot brownie recipe versus a brownie recipe that belongs to the Leafly editor's mom. And they infused it with cannabis. Pretty clever how they presented it. Here, have a look.
We're number one. We're number one. We're number
And there
one.
you have it, folks. The Cannabist's triple chocolate pot brownie is the best pot brownie in the world, and that is a fact.
A fact.
So, way too much fun. Give it a try if you've not made it before. Very, very tasty pot brownie. And I want to give a shout out to our recipe writer, Miss Lori Wolf, out of Portland, Oregon.
Hey, Lori.
So damn talented. But Vince, hey, it's time to bring out our first guest, who's making his second appearance on the Cannabist Show. It's my pleasure to welcome back to the couch, Will Evans. Hey, brother, how's it going?
Hey, good to see you.
You too, man.
It's good to be back.
Yeah, welcome back to the Great North.
Oh, yeah.
Last time you were here with us, of course, you were marketing director of Alpine Wellness. You've moved on. You're a consultant in this crazy industry we call cannabis. But, well, first question first.
What you got?
Sativa or indica?
Sativa all day, every day.
All day, every day.
Yeah, I get a little couch locked if I smoke the indica. I mean, I like it if it's a good event weekend, festival weekend. I want to come down, indica to go to sleep. But sativa during the day, morning, night, keeps me even, keeps me focused.
Well, your other world, of course, you are DJ Soul Atomic, right?
Yeah,
and
that's true.
Do
That's
you ever,
my alter ego.
Yeah, your alter ego. Do you ever get high before you spin?
Sometimes, but it has to be the right environment. If it's like a normal club show, I like to be sober, maybe have a drink or two. But if it's a festival environment, late night scene, it's a little bit of a different case.
I get that. Well, you and I had an interesting conversation earlier, prepping for the show, and I want to continue that because we covered some interesting things I think our readers and our viewers and listeners might be curious about. I want to talk about the experience of buying legal marijuana in 2016. We'll start with this. How do you think people choose to shop where they end up shopping? How, you know, that first decision they're making, I'm going to buy marijuana, where am I going?
I think it's two things. It depends on when you say people, who are these people, right? If it's a long-time consumer, someone who's experienced with pot, they're going to go, where are their friends? You know, where's their family? Where are the people that are going to give me a great deal? People that take care of me because they know who I am, we have a relationship. And then there's those people that are brand new, right? I've never smoked pot before. I don't know. They're going to go to wherever they're directed, whether the taxi driver said, try this, a friend recommended that, and they're going to want a different experience. So those are two big groups. But in that, I think that people want to shop where they find products where they see themselves, right? They want to go into a space that feels good. A point that was brought up to me earlier is that, you know, you walk into some pot shop, there's an armed guard, a security gate, you go in, then there's a private room. It feels like, hey, am I doing something wrong? Or is this cool? Can I do this?
Sure.
And so some shops and brands are very good at providing an open environment where others are not. Some shops and brands have a really great product selection. And some shops and brands also focus really carefully on customer service, like what can I do for you and how can I do it? And I think that's what really dictates where someone's going to go and shop.
Especially where they might return to shop after going a first time, right?
I mean, that's a big deal. I think people come into some shops like, that's cool, and they don't ever want to come back. And there are other brands that I think hit the nail on the head and really set a standard for the industry where consumers can feel safe, feel enjoyed, feel like they are part of something, instead of experiencing something that's separate from everything else.
It's a good point. You know, I live over near the Santa Fe Arts District, and there's a little medical marijuana shop over there, and I stop in from time to time just to see what's going on. I also like their spirit. It's a tiny shop. It's called Pharmaceuticals.
Yeah, I know right where that is.
Yeah, tiny little shop, but when you walk in, instantly you're greeted warmly. There's lots of magazines. There's, you know, big couch, and the first thing they do to you before they even check your card is like, hey, do you want a drink? They always have root beer, you know, which is kind of interesting. Root beer is one of those things that's like, oh, I haven't had a root beer in like a year.
In a while.
But, you know, bottled water and that little thought, you know, and the smile and offer of a soft drink goes a long way. It makes me want to go back as a customer.
Absolutely. Well, because there's a focus on who's the person that just came into my shop. Who are you? Right. I want to get to know you before you do anything. Hey, what's up? How's your day? How are you as a human being? And I think that in the legalization of cannabis from 2014 till now, there is such a, oh my God, it's legal. Can I do it? Then it's like, what are the standards? You know, what's the regulations? Is everything legal and on the up and up? And now that there's been a settling of the industry after 2 years to a point where people can really start to invest in what's the next step, what's the next level. You know, it goes beyond product selection, location, brand to who's my customer, what can I do for them? How can I focus on them instead of just being open and being legal and compliant? What can I do to represent the neighborhood I'm in, the city I'm in? Who are the customers that are going to come in this, and what is my relationship to the community? So,
and you know, even on a it's a bit kitschier of a point, but some of these businesses come up with little games that they do at the point of sale.
Right.
That place I just mentioned, it's a medical only shop, but they let you pick a card from a full deck of cards, and if you can predict what you're about to pick, you know. Another shop has a little Wheel of Fortune thing.
I've seen the Wheel of Fortune.
Over by DU at the University of Denver, and that thing is just fun. Whenever I'm there, I'm like, oh yeah, I want to spin that wheel, so it's usually like a minimum $40 purchase, but I don't know. Moving on, when you and I were talking earlier, you also mentioned something that we've talked on a little bit on this show, but I want to talk some more. You mentioned the rise of the branded consumer experience. So tell me a little bit more about that. And also, are we at the point in legal weed where anyone's really nailed that branded consumer experience?
Okay. There's a couple of ways to look at that. I think on the surface, it's easy to look at it from a dispensary point of view because that's the most common denominator.
Sure.
And it's easy to look at that from a product point of view. And when I say branded consumer experience, what that means from a dispensary level, is it a cohesive message? Is it a cohesive environment? Does it reflect the community of which they're in? Do people see themselves in that product? And then how is it that they execute that? How do they take care of their customers? How do they make them feel like this is where I want to shop and I'm a part of that? And when I say brand, that's everything, the how, the details, the attention to detail, and how you want to execute that vision. You look at companies like Live Well, Native Roots, Strainwise, Three huge companies that have many locations across the state, and they each have a unique presence. I think that Live Well stands out as a company that caters to a very specific demographic. They know who their customer is. They cater to it. If you go into a waiting room at Live Well, it's a scene half the time. You walk in, you feel like, ooh, I just walked in somewhere. It's like walking into a bar or a restaurant. There's people that you know, there's conversations happening, and everybody's aware.
It's social, yeah.
Yeah, it's super
social.
Where if you go into a Native Roots, which has an amazing shopping experience, it's not the same. It's a very clean, it's a very kind of quiet environment. It's still fun and accessible, but it's different. And I think it's two opposite sides of the same coin where you throw in strain-wise. And here you have a shop that has this unique brand experience around each location. So you have this parent company, strain-wise, but every shop has its own identity, whether it's the Loft, the Grove, etc. And each has its own unique look when you go into the store.
Sure.
And you love it. It reflects the local community of which they're in, but at the same time, it's also, this is a strain-wise store. So they've come up with their own style, their own design. So those concepts from a branded experience mean a lot.
And that's an interesting point of view, because these aren't always in the most ideal locations, but still you might walk into a Strain-wise location or a Native Roots location, and once you're in there, it is branded as such. And like Strain-wise is a great example because did you ever watch Lost back in the day? The Dharma Initiative,
right.
That aesthetic of graphic design when they're out on the island with the Dharma Initiative and everything is like generically labeled. But I loved that visual aesthetic, and when I first saw Strain-wise, I'm like, oh, that reminds me a lot of the Dharma Initiative, and it kind of...
Well, it's iconic, right? So their logo sticks out, and at the same time, each store tells a story. And, you know, like you said in Lost, like there's all these spots on the island, they're all named different things after experiments. And I think that Strain-wise is really paying attention to where are we opening and what are we doing in that community and how are we represented. And those three things are huge, and it's what really sets them apart, I think, in those kind of bigger chain stores. But it's not to say that Native Roots doesn't have something going on, that Live Well doesn't have something going on. A company like Green Solution, which lots of locations, but unfortunately I think there's a real disconnect between what they're doing as a brand and what the consumer experience is. Just having a lot of locations doesn't make you successful or make a brand. There has to be a culture-driven attitude of this is what we're doing and how we're doing, and this is what it means to our customers. And I think a store like that misses the boat a little bit.
Yeah, there has to be a certain level of cohesion, and I still haven't gotten into as many pot shops as I need to more than 2 years in, but it always is a welcome experience where it's like, wow, I was greeted with this aesthetic, I shopped amid this aesthetic, and then maybe my exit bag matched.
Well,
like
that's
some local dispensaries.
I mean, that's a good experience. I mean, I've been fortunate to, I think I'm close to 125, 126 dispensaries I've been into.
Oh, wow.
And all over. So it's not just the Front Range, but the smaller markets. Like Salida has some really great shops. Durango is really coming online. The Western Slope is alive and well. Pueblo West, two very different markets, even though people might say, hey, it's Pueblo. I think the stores out in Pueblo West have a really great thing going on. They know who their customers are and who they're trying to represent. I think that Boulder is doing a great job. A shop like The Farm.
Sure.
Incredible culture when you walk in there. You walk into the farm and it's like, oh, where am I? And they have this little lounge to the right, the waiting area right there. Then they bring you back into the shopping area. And from start to finish, that whole experience is absolutely impeccable. They have their own unique branding, their own unique design. And it's not like anything else in the marketplace. They moved away from just the pot leaves and the green and pictures of bud to create something that says, hey, you're a part of this and we're a community, so let's get past the novelty of buying pot and that it's legal. Let's mature into a lifestyle-driven enterprise of, hey, we're all doing these great things, let's do them together, and pot's a part of it. So
I get that, and definitely, no two stores are created equally. They're so different. I want to talk about this lastly. You know, the shopping experience.
Sure.
Once you're inside a fancy shop, a bare bones but thoughtful shop. Have you seen legal marijuana stores learn from more traditional retail outlets in the way they present their products or their selection, or even maybe utilizing end caps or point of sale, last minute purchase items? Are you seeing that in legal marijuana as we get into this third year of recreational sales?
You're starting to. You're really starting to. I would say a shop that, you know, we mentioned the farm already, but another shop that really stands out is Silver Peak in Aspen.
Yeah.
I think they have a phenomenal decor from start to finish. As soon as you walk in, it's this incredible environment where they've paid attention to every detail. You look at Good Chemistry in Aurora, right? Way different than Good Chemistry in Colfax.
Yes, it is.
Night and day. But you see the attention to detail, and they're going so far as to trying to create touch points to people's lifestyles. And this is sleepy time, this is energetic, this is for work. And so you're seeing things like that take place, and it means something. I don't think anyone's quite hit the nail on the head. I don't think there's been that one brand experience on any level, whether it's a dispensary or a product, that 100% across the board, everyone was like, yes, that's what I wanted at the perfect place at the perfect time. It filled this niche, or there was some communal experience, the way that people can talk about like the Pepsi challenge or new Coke versus old Coke, or one of those things, experiences around a brand where an event really defined a standard for an entire industry. I think that's a goal everyone's racing towards. I think a lot of people are close. It's not there yet. I think when it happens, we'll know it. But there are companies out there that are paying attention to, you know, who is my consumer, what do they want, and how can I do it better? And the how is everything. The attention to detail means the most.
Well, this reminds me of a story we have coming out pretty soon. Dave Magoya, my colleague, and I worked on this massive piece that's a profile of some of the largest license holders in the city and county of Denver. One of these gentlemen, I don't want to give it away because it's kind of a fun element of the story, but one of these gentlemen used to work at a Subway franchise, later owned that Subway franchise, or maybe multiple. And when he later went into marijuana, he was very careful to situate some of his stores in a way like you're checking out at Subway. And when you're checking out at Subway, it's like, oh, I guess I do want a larger drink and these chips and maybe 3 cookies for $1 or whatever. And he's using that organization inside his marijuana business. And so you're up at the front, and maybe it's like, oh, actually, I forgot I'm running low on flour, and that concentrate looks pretty tasty. And anyway, we're going to talk more about this soon. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me back.
Very, very soon. On to our next segment, where I will throw to our very own instructor of indica, and of course that's Professor Pat for this week's entry in the new Cannabist lexicon.
Reclaim. The goop that collects in your concentrate rig. Basically, it's the oil smoker versions of resin. It smells kind of gross, but it will still get you high. To hear that in a sentence, look at that gross ball of reclaim floating around in there. You need to clean your rig, man.
Thank you for that, Professor Pat. On to our next guest, who runs one of the most modern cannabis businesses in the U.S. I'm psyched to welcome to the couch Micah Tapman to the Cannabist Show. How's it going?
Doing well. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for joining us. Had you ever met Will before, or is...
No, we ran into each other downstairs trying to get into the locked bathroom.
Oh, yeah, that's always
which
a fun
we were
time.
unsuccessful doing. So.
Well, I'm glad we were able to help you guys find a restroom before taping. But Micah, indica or sativa?
IPA.
You're an IPA man.
IPA guy, yep.
Okay, well, what kind of IPA then, I have to ask?
Oh, you know...
you do live in a brewing mecca, right?
It's Colorado, yeah, it's amazing. You know, there's so many good ones, but I live near Fate up in Boulder,
Sure.
so Fate IPA is probably my favorite right now.
Ah, cool.
Yeah.
And you don't get high then?
I do occasionally, but, you know, it's funny, cannabis for me is it's a pastime, you know, occasionally. It's not the regular, you know, day-to-day for me.
Sure. Yeah, I totally hear that. I'm in the middle of writing a book right now, actually, and I just worked on this chapter the other day about my own transition. I used to be very much a wine guy, you know, a cocktail guy, and that was just a subtle transition that happened for me post-legalization. Now I have a different preferred intoxicant, but I also understand that didn't happen for everybody. So
well, and I think that it's a matter of a transition in the industry too, right? As we mature as an industry and consumption changes, it's something that you get used to and you need to sort of explore personally. And right now, one of my gripes is it's actually hard to consume. I find it sort of a pain in the butt to consume on a daily basis.
Sure.
You know, and flower is my typical go-to.
Oh, yeah.
But grinding, filling a vaporizer, you know, or bowl, whatever you may want, it just takes time. Whereas if I'm sitting and working, you know, and it's 8 o'clock at night, and maybe I'll crack open a beer. And it takes me 2 seconds versus sitting down and going through the process.
There's convenience to it, no doubt. Micah, you're going to help us understand what your business is, Canopy Boulder. I'm reading from the bio here. A seed stage business accelerator focused on ancillary products and services in the legal cannabis industry. So seed stage, I had to look this up. I don't know much about venture capital investment, but seed stage is that earliest stage when these people are just becoming a business. Is that right?
Absolutely. Seed stage is that point. Sometimes you see the abbreviation FFF for friends, family, and fools. Getting involved in
seen that, but I didn't know that's what it meant. Okay, cool.
Yeah, it's the crazy time, right? It's the time when you probably haven't proven your revenue model. You don't have a lot of customers, or maybe even any. You're trying to figure everything out and trying to recruit people. And one of the things that's interesting about investing in that space is it's primarily driven by people. You know, everybody has good ideas, and to be honest, ideas are not really worth anything. It's rare to see some idea that's so groundbreaking as to be worth a lot of money.
Sure, yeah.
People, though, and teams are worth a lot of money, and they're worth investing in. And so as an investor, it's about building authentic relationships and trying to identify those entrepreneurs and the teams that you can build an entire relationship around. It's not a one-time engagement. We're not involved with them for a couple of weeks or even a few months. We're involved for 5 years, 10 years, right, in these businesses. And so if I'm investing in Will here, for example, right, I better like him. We're going to be spending some time together. And, you know, today I think I talked to 6 or 7 companies we've invested in. And I'm on the phone for, you know, 15, 20 minutes with each of them. And I want that to be pleasant. If it's not pleasant, then my life is going to be awful, and probably theirs too.
I hear that, yeah. And what's fascinating about this, I think so many people don't, you know, venture capital is something that most people probably don't understand or have the ability to participate in, right? But what we do have access to, Micah, is Shark Tank, okay? And granted, I'm a fan. I kind of like that silly show, but one thing you just said kind of resonated with something that they're always talking about on that show, whether it's Damon or Mark or, you know, Mr. Wonderful or whoever those other guys. Sometimes they're investing in an idea, but more often than not, they're investing in the people. They like those people. It's not going to bum them out to have to hold their hand through a process. So for you, is it fair to say that it really might be more about the person than it is there?
It's got to be at least 70–80% the person.
Oh, wow.
I don't really care very much about the idea, to be honest. And the reality is that if the person has an idea in the right general vicinity of what I'm looking to do, then I'll definitely, you know, look to invest in them. And, you know, as an example, marketing and branding is an area that we think is booming in the industry.
Sure.
And right now, one of the biggest gaps in the industry is probably packaging. When you walk in, you see very little in the way of packaging designed for a particular store. It tends to be the old pill bottle type thing, which I think you would probably agree doesn't.
So generic.
Yeah. And so that's a type of investment we'd love to make in the right team. And what do I mean by the right team? Well, you need a great leader, and that person needs to bring other people together around the idea of packaging. But what exactly are they going to do with packaging? Honestly, who cares at first? Right? They're going to do something around packaging. And over the next 18 to 24 months, they'll figure out exactly what the industry needs. They'll figure out how to finance it. They'll figure out how to get it out there and get it sold to people who actually want to buy it. So that initial idea, it doesn't it doesn't matter too much. It's just the sort of sphere of influence.
And this kind of comes full circle to what you were saying earlier about the process of ingesting cannabis, and do we have to work for it? And, you know, granted, there's certain child-proofing concerns that have to be involved in this decision of packaging. But the other night I was laughing when I told my wife I got out this new Incredibles bar that we were trying at home, and my word, that packaging is almost impossible to open without some sort of tool, even as an adult. And I was like, well, this is certainly childproof, but my God, it's just so unpleasant. And I think I busted open my thumb trying to do it. And
so my knuckle, just the other day, I was opening a stupid package of some sort, and it wasn't even a cannabis package, but I just cut myself. And I remember thinking back to those days not too long ago when, you know, all the stores went to the, I guess, theft-proof or whatever they're trying to do. But you just couldn't open it if you didn't have scissors. You know, you absolutely needed something to cut this damn package open.
Yeah.
And I feel like, you know, our industry, we're learning, we're evolving, and as a venture capitalist, my job is to find gaps, then identify teams that are working in those gaps, and then help those teams move forward. And so coming back to your original question about what the hell is Canopy Boulder, you know, we're a business accelerator. Mini MBA is sort of the way I might phrase it, right? So it's a 16-week program.
Masterclass.
Yeah, we 16-week program. We do a lot of training, a lot of mentorship. We team people up with mentors in the community, industry leaders and veterans in the community who've been around the block, made some of those mistakes, and can help people avoid making them in the future. We also give money to them, of course, which is nice, up to $70,000. Which is a good benefit. And of course, we help them pitch in front of ArcView, which is, you know, the largest investor forum in the country with over 500 members, I think.
And what do you guys get in return? There's a certain percentage? Or?
Yeah, so we take an equity position in each company, between 6 and 9.5% in each company. Common stock, so we come in equal with the founders in terms of voting rights and stuff. And something I would say for all of the viewers, you know, out there, is really to, if you're ever taking investment, the equity is very, very important, and that's something to focus on. But more important is control of the company. And good venture capitalists are not going to try to take control of your company, which is something that, unfortunately, in this industry, we've seen a lot of investors try to take control of companies that are on the brink of being big, and take them away from the founders, which is really, really unfortunate, and has driven some really good people out of the industry, unfortunately.
And this is fascinating. I love talking to you about this stuff, especially because Shark Tank is just such a fun show. And this is like a legit cannabis Shark Tank.
Yeah.
And we have one of the sharks on the couch with us.
Yeah.
Micah, you
I'm
guys...
more like a turtle than a shark.
I get it. But I'd rather swim with the turtle than a shark.
Yeah.
You guys just raised $2 million to invest in these businesses.
Yep.
Congratulations
Thank
on
you.
that. But what are Canopy's biggest success stories so far? Any brands that we might be familiar with and say, oh yeah, we heard of them?
No, probably not. But we do have a couple of big winners. We work a lot on the B2B side of things, and two companies that have been our big winners. Last year we made 19 investments, and two companies have really just taken off. One is Tradive, and they're an online marketplace for licensed cultivators, manufacturers of infused products, and retailers to buy and sell goods. And they've just
kind of
killed it.
back-end wholesaling.
Exactly.
They won a Cannabist award late last year.
Yeah, and they're killing it. They're doing great. Aaron, the CEO, chairman now actually, is a wonderful guy. He's a Marine like I am, so we bonded instantly there.
Cool.
And actually coming back to that idea of authentic relationships, it's interesting how as an investor you look for commonality and you look for something you share so that you can sort of bond with people and, you know, really make it more than just about the dollars and cents. So Tradive is a great story, and that's a great relationship. I was just talking to Aaron before the show, and they're doing really, really well. And then another big one, again, no one has ever heard of course, but you'll see their data all over the place because they are the business intelligence solution for the cannabis industry, and that's BDS Analytics. And I think you've talked with Roy Bingham, the CEO of BDS before.
I have, good dude. He sat where you're sitting probably 2 months ago.
Yeah, I think he said he failed miserably on the quiz section of the show. Knew nothing about pop culture.
That's true, and it didn't help that I think he was raised where, in Is he Australian or British?
He's British, although if you call him Australian, that would be very funny. I don't think that he would appreciate that too much.
Roy, I swear I wasn't calling you Australian, all right?
He kept claiming Massachusetts.
Yeah. He's actually from Rhode Island now, and his family's back there, so he's splitting time there. But he's building a powerhouse of a business with BDS Analytics, and they're really unique because in terms of marketing and branding, for example, when you look at the challenges of this industry, we're seeing dispensaries really struggle now to survive. A lot of consolidation.
Absolutely.
And
consolidation's a huge issue.
And one of the things that every retailer needs to figure out is what products to carry. And right now, if you were to say, are savory edibles selling better than sweet edibles? I don't think we really know. Right? Who knows? Roy does.
Right.
And that's exactly what BDS Analytics is all about, is figuring out what products are actually selling and moving out of the stores. Before, all we really saw were some inventory numbers, and those don't actually show sales. So this is revolutionary for the whole industry, and I think he actually has a new publication coming out like today about 420 and what they expect to see in terms of consumption around 420.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. The data is such an important part of the piece. And I know when I first talked with Roy, he was building up the number of stores that he was drawing data from, and we were like, well, we're not sure if that's fully representative of a full state, but now it looks like they're robust enough to be able to say we feel very confident that these numbers about the infiltration of concentrates in the market or something are fairly representative of what's happening here in Oregon, in Washington, and that's exciting. So you mentioned earlier too that you're particularly passionate about attracting women and minority ownership into not only the industry but also your program. So how's that going?
It's a struggle, and probably in part, right? I'm the average white guy, venture capitalist getting involved and doing this stuff. But the reality is we have to reach out to women and minorities and bring them into the industry early on. They're huge in the demographics of the country, right? You look at the Hispanic community, for example, one of the fastest growing demographics in the country. And we don't make enough investments into companies that are led by executives who are either female or minorities. And if our companies in our portfolio don't represent the country, then we're leaving huge gaps in the market. And coming back to what I was saying earlier, my job is to identify gaps, identify areas where we can grow amazing businesses. And appealing to different demographics is actually one of my sort of pet issues. And I look at this and I say, like, okay, I want a dispensary that appeals to women with kids, around the age of 35. Right? And so how do you do that, right? Well, you probably want a woman who's running the show.
Absolutely.
Right? Because they could actually appeal to other people like them. If we're talking about the Black or Hispanic or Asian communities, right, a white guy can't really go in and be like, oh yeah, I can do this. I know exactly how to appeal to you. How do I market to the Black community? Well, I'm not the guy who's going to make that jump. Almost certainly not. And so we need to reach out to those folks, and we need to make those connections. And there are some initiatives underway in the industry to try to bring more minorities to the table. But I think everybody has to go out of their way and shake hands and say hi, and try to bring everybody to places like Canopy or ArcView. Really promote minorities in general in the industry.
But I think this can be a part of the start of that conversation. We have 3,000 listeners and viewers every week, and so if there's some 22-year-old woman out there who's a hustler, there's some young Latino kid out there who's just ready to work his ass off, what do they do? How do they get in touch with you? How do they pitch to Canopy?
So pitching to Canopy is an interesting proposition. Anybody can do it, of course, right? We'll take any application, just go to the website, and under About, there's an apply section. You can go through the process, and we're accepting applications now. I would also, though, encourage them to network in the industry. I would say that anybody who's getting into the industry and wants to build a business, the first step is to build a team. Businesses are not one-person enterprises.
Sure.
I don't care who you are. You need a team of people around you. And like, for example, there's the Minorities Cannabis Business Association, which is just starting up, and they're actively seeking chapter leads and people to be involved in different jurisdictions to lead that. They're all the meetups. You know, the Cannabis Tech meetup here in Denver is really good. Soham does a great job running it.
Homeboy, and I think our GM just went to the NCIA's. They do a happy hour once a month or something. So yeah, tons of meetups.
Yeah, we're having a party on the 15th. Great meetup.
Yeah, that's right. The Cannabis is doing your show on the 15th, right?
April 15th.
Yep. So I would say that, you know, it's about making those connections and coming back again. I'll keep harping on this idea of authentic relationships, right? I'm going to be much more likely to invest in a business with somebody who's said hello to me a few times and, you know, tried to connect and make those connections. And I do think that's one of the struggles with minorities, is because unfortunately this country is still very, very separate, you know, on a racial undertone level, and it's really unfortunate that we don't interact as much as we could across races. And so we don't have shared backgrounds. And so I think it's very important to bridge those gaps and to reach across the sort of boundaries that we draw arbitrarily, because, you know, we didn't go to the same schools, or we didn't grow up in the same neighborhood, or whatever it may be. And so we don't have that instant connection. And it's funny how those things really do, they percolate through life. And it includes venture capital investing.
Absolutely. Well, good luck with that. And I hope that some of the people watching or listening to this show reach out, and who knows, maybe there'll be a success story a couple years down the line saying, I remember watching Micah talk on the Cannabist Show.
I'm sure we'll have it. Yeah.
This is a question for you both, and it's kind of an extension of what we've been talking about here today, this consumer experience in a modern marijuana world. But in this state, or in other states, or on a different national and international platform, is there a standout product or a brand in your guys' opinion? Well, I want to start with Will. Maybe each of you pick one brand or product, here or elsewhere, that you think has just done a really dynamic job of setting itself apart from its competition.
Well, I have to say, if I had to pick a brand, easily one of the first brands that come to mind, if you look at LiveWell and how they staff their stores, who they staff their store with, you mentioned minorities, women a lot, and who they cater to. You know, they set up in areas that I think are close to very diverse economic groups, low income, mid, high. If you look at where their locations are, I think that they've picked very smart places in that we want to reach everyone. And when you go into their stores, I mean, you're seeing women, you're seeing minorities, you're seeing tattoos, you're seeing clean cut. You see everyone who you'd expect to see in your day-to-day life. And they all feel at home. And that's why when you walk into one of their waiting rooms, especially LiveWell on Broadway or over here on Larimer, it's amazing. It's a scene. You're like, all right, what's happening here? Yeah. You know, it doesn't matter what state of mind you're in. Sober, just woke up, tired,
not sober,
high as a kite. You're going to experience something, and you go in, and you can see yourself in the people, and in that exchange of dialogue. You don't feel put out of place for wearing a suit or wearing, sweatpants. And there's something to be said about a brand that can carry that kind of culture and attitude and not make it weird at any time, because other brands that just fail at that. If you walk in, oh, I feel out of place, this isn't the store for me, I don't see myself in anyone that works here.
Sure.
How are they going to know who I am?
Interesting, yeah, and just for out-of-state viewers, listeners, LiveWell is a local dispensary group in Colorado, 14 shops locally, and they're expanding to Oregon. The owner told me a couple months ago, so good example. Micah, what about your example? What would you pick?
What would I pick? I think within the cannabis industry, we've seen some really interesting branding initiatives, like Dixie Elixirs. I think has done really well branding the name Dixie, and putting that out there. And I've been really, sort of surprised by how well they've done with that. They're a relatively small company, but I think they've punched above their weight, as you might say. And I've been very impressed, by
with
that.
Dixie?
With their reputation, their brand reputation.
I don't know. I think I look at Dixie and I see McDonald's. I look at something like Quill, like Juju joints. Yep. You're talking about very smart, exciting brands with amazing packaging. You look at Alt Thai, their edibles. another smart, forward-thinking company that they're going in a different area. I mean, you look at Quill, and they put out there, it's low dose. It's something I may not want to do, but I'd hand it to my grandmother, I'd hand it to my mom or my cousin or a first-timer, and they really know who their market is. Hey, this is not for everyone. This is someone who wants low dose, smart packaging, intelligent design. You look at their brands online, and I think they're incredible. Like Juju Joints, that's a beautiful package.
Well,
you hold that in your hand.
Yeah, I think that's what's interesting to me about that. Dixie's gotten so much press and publicity, despite not having that sort of unique spin. I don't love the Dixie brand, to be honest.
Well, I think they got there first. I think they got there first, and they're in multiple states, which is huge. It's hard to say, not a lot of brands can say we're in many states.
That is an absolute amazing business play by them to be able to do that. And I've seen so many
hands
companies
down. I'm not taking away from that. I'm not taking away from that at all when I say that.
But then I would actually jump out of the cannabis industry because I really don't think there are many good brands and marketing plays in the cannabis industry yet. I think there's some up-and-comers that are really starting to play well. But you talk about inclusion and this ability for anybody to walk in and relate. And it reminded me a lot of Apple and how they were able to transcend that. And you walk into an Apple store and you see the 15-year-old kid who's just all about video games next to grandpa, next to the businessman who's walking in with his broken laptop that needs it fixed right away. And everybody seems fine in there. And oh, by the way, a goat will walk through the store at some point too. And everything is perfectly fine as well.
That's perfectly normal. He lives here.
Yeah, I think building that brand and stuff, Apple I think has been a sort of game changer for how you could actually do it. And I think you're seeing companies like LiveWell really play that card in the cannabis industry and grow amazing brands.
When I see that, I would make the argument, that if you think Dixie is like the McDonald's of cannabis, they might think that's a great thing.
I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I just think it depends on who the consumer is and what's important to them. I'll eat my McDonald's if I'm in a rush, right? But I also like a nice steak. I think to that point, you look at where you have to get outside of cannabis and do other things. Look at a brand like Apothecana. And so they have such a small amount of what they do that's in the cannabis side, and the majority of their products are outside of cannabis. And they've made great inroads at working with spas and creating different partners. So there's all these touch points from beauty and skincare to massage and spa, and so there's other industries that can take advantage of a product.
And hemp is doing that as well.
Yeah, the whole everything that coming from that world is untouched.
Yeah.
I'm going to throw in here Storz and Bickle. All right.
Sure.
I have to.
The Crafty. I just got a Crafty.
Oh, you did?
I love the vape. It's
so if you don't know what we're talking about, Storz and Bickle is the maker of the Volcano, which is the gold standard desktop vaporization unit, and they came out with a portable called the Crafty. You can find a review of it on the cannabis.co. But yeah, I just think it's when you have that brand that equates to quality, that equates to gold standard, something that many vaporizers are working toward right now, PAX included. That's a good thing, and that they were able to translate that to a portable unit. We'll see what they do next. Gentlemen, we could talk about this all day, and I appreciate your enthusiasm, but we have to move on to the pot quiz.
All right.
This is where Roy got tripped up.
I'm probably going to fail as well.
I got 1 out of 4 last time,
all
so
right,
we'll see.
All right, we are starting this pot quiz with Will.
Oh, man.
And here is your first question. How it works, if Will gets the answer wrong, you can steal it with the right answer. So, Will, 2 consecutive drug busts in Colorado last week involved residents of what U.S. state? They were back-to-back, day after day. 2 very sizable drug busts. And the state, I'll give you this hint, it's not Colorado.
Kansas.
Good guess, but no. All right, for the steal.
Nebraska.
There's like 48 others. See, this one, when I say what state it is, not only is producer Vince going to make some sort of a joke, but you guys will also understand that these people were from Florida.
Oh.
The infamous Florida Man headlines came through everywhere. I loved it.
Florida Man.
Florida is just a joke. I lived there for years. And,
you did?
Yeah, and Florida's unique, right?
It's its
so
own
bizarre.
country.
It is weird.
It's its own punchline too.
Strange stuff happens, and it's in Florida. You're just like, oh yeah, it's just Florida. That's
It is. It's
Yeah.
it like that explains it, right? It's like, oh yeah, of course all these random people from Florida came to Colorado to grow illegal weed and try and ship it out of the state, but these guys got caught. All right, so no points yet. Micah, moving on to you. Denver cannabis law firm Vicente Cederberg this week hired a new attorney away from what Colorado state agency this week?
ooh. I mean, I gotta think it was the MED.
It's a good guess.
No.
And I think they have 1 or 2 people from the MED, but this week it was not the Marijuana Enforcement Division.
I should have asked Josh.
Yeah. All right. Well, for the steal. What Colorado state agency did this cannabis law firm lure an attorney away from this week?
Yeah, we just talked about this. I should absolutely remember. I want to say it's not the Attorney General, is it? No.
Is that your
Do you
answer?
think I'm going to tell you?
Yeah,
All right, give me an answer. Give me an answer, Will.
The first thing that popped to mind was Attorney General's office.
Colorado Attorney General's office, and that is right.
Yeah.
Nice. You're retaining information. That's always good to know. Brains are working the way they're supposed to. Okay, Will. Question is to you now. Name one of the 2 headliners playing Denver's massive 420 rally.
Wiz Khalifa.
Wiz Khalifa. Can you name the other?
Well, I remembered him because he has his own brand, I believe, launching here pretty
He
soon.
does on 420 weekend at River Rock stores throughout the state.
Yeah, but I don't remember the second person.
All right, well, I'll offer a bonus point.
I got nothing on
Oh, no, Micah. Okay.
that. I knew Wiz. That was it.
Sorry, Lil Wayne. Okay.
Lil Wayne.
I should have known.
He's not relevant anymore.
Yep.
Wheezy is in it. Okay, so Micah, last question and your opportunity to get on the board. A cannabis club in what Alaskan city recently closed after just months of being open because of low membership numbers? A, Anchorage. B, Juneau. C, Fairbanks. D, Homer. E, excuse me, E, Eagle River.
That's his tell, apparently.
Yeah, apparently.
Yeah.
I get nervous.
Well, I have no idea where Eagle River is. Juneau, I feel like there got to be some smokers there because it's near British Columbia and all that good stuff. Homer's a weird town, but I like it a lot. I got to think they got plenty of smokers there too. I'll go Fairbanks.
Dang, nice
Yeah?
job.
All right.
All right. You
Yeah.
pulled it
Yeah.
out.
That was
Got
gonna be
on
my
the board.
answer.
Well done, gentlemen. I really appreciate you both joining me today. Will Evans, Micah Tapman, Canopy?
Canopy,
Yeah, Canopy Boulder. I was about to say Canopy, and then I kind of freaked out. My voice did that weird thing. Thanks to you all for watching and listening. Please tell your friends about the podcast. Click subscribe on iTunes, Stitcher. There you go. I'm Ricardo Baca, joined by producers Vince, Eric, Katie, and the rest of the crew. Have a great day, everyone, and we will see you next week.
I'm allowed to lose, I choose
Good
to
work,
win.
man.
I'm all in, I'm calling any posse you be raising at the end. I say it again, ain't afraid to get in. I be going for the jackpot with aces in my hand, I'm raw.